and it was published. Nobody asked, nobody cares. Oh, sunny day today, very sunny. Hi, oh okay, sorry, hold on. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, as the title would suggest, is going to be 18 of the books that I hope to get to in 2018. On Goodreads, there are over 400 books on my TBR. I don't really know why I said that, it's not strictly relevant to this video per se. So one of my reading goals in 2018 was to read some of my own books. Of the books I own, I would say I haven't read roughly 80% of them, and I feel like this is a year to change that. Compared to some people on BookTube, I barely have any books, but my bookshelves in my room are actually packed. For the last couple of summers, I've actually volunteered in a charity shop, so I would have access to a lot of the books coming in like first selection kind of thing. I did buy the books, I didn't just take them. Yeah, so I'd have access to a lot of the books, and they were being sold at like 50p, £1, so I wasn't making any money from working there, obviously, because I was volunteering. I made some donations to that charity shop, that's for sure. I must have acquired like at least 15 books from them, and I generally buy books from charity shops anyway, and for that reason I have so many books, because when they're 50p, £1, I'm like, why not, let me just buy these books. As a result, I have a ton of unread books. So as I said, one of my goals this year is to actually read some of the books that I own, and all but one of the books that I've got here is a library book, so I feel like that's making strides. A lot of the books here are by authors that I've not actually read before, so I'm excited to finally read some of their work. I have read some of the work of the authors here, which is why I'm looking to read some of the books that I have here, because I've read past books and I like them, so I want to keep reading. Anyway, I feel like that was the longest winded intro. Long-winded? I feel like that was the most long-winded intro ever. So let me just dive in, because there's 18 books here. In an effort for this video to not be crazy long, I'm going to try and not say too much about each book, otherwise we're going to be here all day. You might not be, but I will be. The first book I have is 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This is one of the books I've had for the longest. I've had this since my second year of sixth form, so when I was 18, and I'm 22 now, so 4 years. It's a long time. I've read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I actually studied it during A-levels back in school. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. That was the first and only book by Khaled Hosseini that I've actually read. I also want to read And the Mountains Echoed, but I'm going to try and read 1,000 Splendid Suns first, seeing as I actually have a physical copy of it right now. I don't know a whole lot about 1,000 Splendid Suns. I know it's a story about family and friendship, because that's what the blurb tells me. Paraphrasing the blurb, one of the characters is only 15 when she marries a man who is many years her senior, and then years later, a girl who's 15 has to leave her house and join Mariam's house, the woman who was 15 when she married the older guy. And it's set in Kabul during the reign of the Taliban. I'm excited to read this because of how good The Kite Runner was. It's a really big book, like size-wise. The story itself is 367 pages long, which is not too bad. I feel like that's an alright length. As I said, I read The Kite Runner a few years ago now, so the story isn't as fresh in my mind. One thing I remember about The Kite Runner is how beautifully it was written, so I'm very excited to get to this one. So that's the first book on the list. The next book I'm hoping to get to is The Help by Catherine Stockett. I've actually already seen the film, and this is the movie cover, but I'm not deterred from reading the book at all. I'm actually really excited to read this. So The Help is a book that takes place in 1962, after, racial tensions are high, and it chronicles the story of the help of black maids in white households, raising white children and running the households and doing what maids did back in the day. I've only ever seen the film once, but I really liked it at the time. Probably rewatch it after I've read this. I'm really excited for the book. One thing I remember about the film is that Viola Davis was so good in it. This one's longer than 1,000 Splendid Suns. It's 451 pages. I'm not really sure why I'm giving you the stats of it, but yeah. The next book that I'm hoping to get to is a Nicholas Sparks one, and that one is The Rescue. So far I've only read one book by Nicholas Sparks, and that was A Walk to Remember. I quite liked that one. I haven't seen the film yet. I've got two other Nicholas Sparks books here, and I know those ones are films, but I don't know if this one is. I really don't know a lot about the majority of the books I have here. I must have seen something in them when I bought them. From what I can gather, this book is about a single mother with a son who has severe disabilities, and then one night they crash, and then she's found unconscious in the car by a fireman, and her son is gone, and then presumably the book is about finding her son, hence why it's called The Rescue. And I'm sure because it's a Nicholas Sparks novel, there will be some romance along the way. A Walk to Remember was a really good book. I think I rated it quite highly. I feel like I definitely gave it at least 4 stars, but I might have given it 5. I'm looking forward to getting to this one. Seeing as I've told you the page numbers of the others, let me continue the trend. This one is 372 pages, and it was published Nobody Asks, Nobody Cares. This book is 18 years old this year, so that's that one. The next book I have here is Us by David Nichols, the author of One Day. Another book I own but haven't yet read. So this book is about a couple who have been married for 20 years, and then all of a sudden their marriage comes to an end, but the husband is determined to win back his wife and the respect of their son Albie. I've literally just read that off the back. The plan is to go on a tour of Europe and save his marriage, I guess. It's got some pretty high praise written on the front. I'm not gonna lie, the cover of this caught my attention. I just thought it looked really cute. I'm looking forward to reading near enough all the books I have here. Receipt, yeah, confirmed, £1. It looks completely brand new. The spine hasn't even been cracked. You can find some really good stuff in charity shops, honestly. We've only gotten through 4 books and I've been filming for 16 minutes. I need to step it up a little bit, otherwise we're going to be here all day. The next book I have here is In a Land of Paper Gods by Rebecca Mackenzie. I know nothing about this book and I didn't even buy this one. I actually won it in a competition along with like 5 other books. This is a historical fiction novel set in China in 1941. I'll read you a bit of the blurb because I literally know nothing about it. Atop the favoured mountain of Lashan perches a boarding school for the children of British missionaries. While her parents pursue their calling, 10-year-old Henrietta S. Robertson discovers that she too has been singled out by the Lord. As Japanese invaders draw closer, Etta and her dormmates retreat into a world where boundaries between make-believe and reality become dangerously blurred. So begins a remarkable journey through a mystical landscape and to the heart of a war. Sounds alright. I don't really read historical fiction. I read one, what was it? Esperanza Rising. I actually listened to the audiobook of that last year. That was a good book. The next book I have here is another Nicholas Sparks novel, and that is The Last Song. Obviously, Liam Hemsworth and Miley Cyrus are in the film adaptation, and this is the movie cover as well. Quite a small paperback. I like paperbacks that are this small that just fit in the palm of your hand. So it's about a 17-year-old girl, Veronica Ronnie. Her life is turned upside down when her parents divorce, and then her dad goes to live in North Carolina, and then years pass and her relationship with her parents is pretty strained. And then I guess in an effort to fix... Why am I guessing? Let me just read the blurb. A few years after the divorce, her mum decides it would be best for her and her brother to spend the summer with her father. So then they go to North Carolina. She meets Liam Hemsworth, and then romantic things ensue. Obviously, she doesn't meet Liam Hemsworth. She meets the character. I don't know anything about his character. His name's not written on the back. But, oh no, Will. I'm excited to read this one so I can finally watch the film. The film must have come out close to 10 years ago by now and I've still not watched it. Hopefully I can get this read and watch the film this year. The next book I have is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I want to read this purely so I can watch the film. I already know how the film ends because this girl I follow on Twitter, it was years ago now because the film came out years ago, but she tweeted the end of the film. I hate when films are spoiled. I feel like since that moment I've actually been determined. Like if I know a film's coming out and there's a book that it's based on, I try my hardest to read the book before the film comes out just so that that can't happen to me again because I was so annoyed. But besides the point, The Great Gatsby is obviously a classic. I don't know a lot about it. I actually started reading it, but I felt it was a really slow read for me. It's quite short. I don't think it's not even 150 pages. It's 145 pages long. I just noticed about a guy called Gatsby who throws parties, and there's a woman called Daisy in it, and I think they fall in love, and I don't really know. How bad is that? I don't know a lot about this. All I really know is that Leonardo DiCaprio is in the film, and that for me that's reason enough. So the next book is a book I picked up because the cover stood out to me, and that is We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves. Look at that cover. I really like the cover. Apparently it has one of the best twists in years and is irresistible. Hilarious and heartbreaking, and it was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize 2014. So from what I can gather, this book is about a woman whose siblings are not in her life anymore. Her sister vanished from her life in circumstances she wishes she could forget, and it's been 10 years since she's seen her brother, and I think this book is basically about her confronting her past so that she's able to move forward in her life. It sounds like a book that I would enjoy. Did I tell you who this one's by? This one is by Karen Joy Fowler. Not read anything by her before. The next book I have is called A Hate List by Jennifer Brown. This book is about a school shooting. I'm not necessarily excited to read this book, but I do want to read it. As of filming this video today, it's been 4 days since the shooting in Florida. I won't say too much about it because I feel like a lot has been said already. We're still at the very beginning of the year and there's already been 18 school shootings. I don't know. I don't want to say too much on it, just that I hope that in the near future we're going to see some changes to the laws surrounding gun control in the US. Basically, this book is about a girl whose boyfriend opened fire in the school cafeteria 5 months ago, and she was injured, but she's been implicated in the crime because they both wrote a list of students that they hated, the hate list. The people that were shot were on the list. After a summer of seclusion, Val is forced to confront her guilt as she returns to school to complete her senior year. Haunted by the memory of the boyfriend she still loves and navigating rocky relationships with her family, her former friends, and the girl whose life she saved, Val must come to grips with the tragedy that took place and her role in it in order to make amends and move on with her life. Considering the number of school shootings and mass shootings in general that have happened in America in recent weeks and months and years, I feel like this book is going to be particularly emotional. Interestingly enough, this isn't the only book on school shootings that I actually have here. The other one is Close Your Eyes by Nikki Clark. Close Your Eyes is about a shooting in Southfield High School. Aisha and her friends are just like any group of mates. They never thought that someone could come to school with a gun. It could have been stopped, but now it's too late. I feel like both of these are going to be particularly emotional reads, but necessary reads. The next book that I'm hoping to get to this year is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I'm sure you've heard of Milk and Honey by now, but it's a set of poems. He's actually come out with another book. I'm not sure what that one's called. But before I even think about that one, I want to get this one read. It's pretty short, and I think if I wanted to, I could get through it in one sitting. I don't want to rush through it. I want to take each poem in. Not too much to say about this one, just I'm looking forward to reading it. So the next book I'm hoping to read this year is Sycamore Row by John Grisham. I don't have a reason for wanting to read this novel in particular. It's just one that I grabbed off of my dad's shelf. I've actually read one book by John Grisham so far, and it sucked. It was Skipping Christmas. One of the worst books I've ever read. It was written in 2001, like 17 years ago. But for me, it wasn't written long enough ago to be as problematic as it was. The characters were racist without realising they were racist. There was no acknowledgement of the fact that the things they were saying were so severely problematic. It was just, I don't know, oh, that's just, I can't remember their names. Lonnie? That's not right. This might get spoilery, and if you haven't read Skipping Christmas and you want to, maybe skip ahead. Her daughter goes to Peru to work with children during Christmas. The dad refers to the children as uncivilized savages at one point. When it's established that their daughter's coming back for Christmas with her Peruvian boyfriend, they're worried about his skin colour, like hoping that he's not too dark. And they're also blown away when they meet him and he's English educated and he speaks English so fluently. And they're just like mesmerised by him. And it's just like, they're so fixated on their skin colour, and it was just not a pleasant read. I read it around Christmas and I was trying to get into the spirit, but if anything it just killed my vibe. It was such a bad book. Generally John Grisham's novels get such high praise, so I was really thrown by that. I didn't realise that he'd even written a Christmas book, but I saw it at the library and I figured I'd give it a read, and I really wish I hadn't. I thought he only wrote books based around the law, but apparently not. If you haven't read Skipping Christmas, I definitely don't recommend it. His books about law are the ones that are raved about, so I figured I'd pick this one up. I actually don't know anything about it. It's pretty long. I'm pretty sure it's the longest book that I have here. 447 pages. This book is about an attorney who's named in the suicide note of a man he's never met as the attorney of his estate, and the majority of his secret fortune is left to his poor black housemaid. Before the body's even cold, the vultures are circling, trying to get a piece of this guy's estate. So race is a factor in this book, and I can only hope that it's handled way better than it was in Skipping Christmas. I don't know if I'm necessarily looking forward to reading this, but I'm definitely curious to see if the high praise that John Grisham gets is deserved. My dad is a fan of his, and he has a lot of John Grisham novels. Me reading this is basically me giving his writing another chance. Okay, we're nearly done. Kind of. Another book that I want to read this year is Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks. This is another one that's been adapted into a film starring Josh Duhamel and Julianne Hough. I bought this because I wanted to see the film. That was years ago. I'm not even that fussed about the film anymore, but I have the book, so I'll probably read it. It's about a mysterious young woman who shows up in a small town. Her sudden arrival raises questions about her past. She's beautiful yet unassuming. Her plan is to avoid forming any kind of attachments to the people in the town until a series of events draws her into two reluctant relationships. She begins to lower her guard and puts down roots in the close-knit community, and I guess she must fall in love with Josh Duhamel's character. She has a dark secret that still haunts her. I don't really have super high hopes for this. I'm not that bothered, really. I don't have low expectations. I'm just kind of indifferent, and yet still somehow I want to read this. Okay, 5 books to go. The next 2 books that I want to read are Remembrance and Proposal by Meg Cabot. This one's a novel and this one's a novella. These are continuations of the Mediator series by Meg Cabot. I loved the Mediator so much when I was younger, and I actually only just finished the series last year. I was so gassed when I saw that she was continuing the series, and I definitely want to get to these ones this year. If you haven't read the Mediator series and you don't want any spoilers, just skip ahead a little bit. So a little bit of background about the Mediator series. In the first part of the series, Suze is a teenager. So her dad died when she was younger, and her mum remarries a guy who is a TV reporter and who's like locally famous, and they move to California to live with him and his 3 sons. So she gets 3 stepbrothers. She calls them Dopey, Sleepy, and I've forgotten the other one's name. And she's a mediator, so she can see ghosts, and she helps them get from this life to the next life. Basically, the series just chronicles her escapades with the ghosts. Some of the ghosts are really problematic, and they try and kill her several times. It makes for a really good story. In these books, she's an adult, and I'm very, very excited. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, actually, in the house that she now lives in with her mum, like back in the earlier series, in the house that she now lives in with her mum and her stepdad and her stepbrothers, there's a guy called Jesse who actually died there because the house used to be a hotel when he was alive in the 1800s. He's been dead for like over 100 years. So Jesse is great. Suze and Jesse are great. A whole bunch of stuff happens between them across the series, and it's just great, and I just love it. And he's back for these books, and if you finish the first part of the series, you know why and you know how. Yeah. Super excited about those 2. So the next book I want to read is The Shack by W.M. Paul Young. I've actually seen the movie. I didn't love the movie. For me, the movie was just okay. It was alright. It was a bit long for me. So this book is about a man whose daughter is abducted and then brutally murdered. Years go by and he falls into a serious depression, and then randomly he receives a note that's apparently from God telling him to go to this shack. The Shack. Against his better judgment, he arrives at the shack on a wintry afternoon and walks back into his darkest nightmare. What he finds there will change Mac's world forever. So this is obviously a religious book, and I'm a Christian. Amongst Christians, this book is a classic, and I'm excited to get to it. And it's actually a New York Times bestseller. For me, the movie was just okay, which makes me think that the book is going to be really good. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but that's just the feeling that I have. In my experience, when the movie is okay, the book is generally better because you can't get as much of the book into the movie. So I've got another Meg Cabot book here. This one's called Queen of Babble, and this one is an adult book, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, this might even be new adult. I've only actually read one adult book by Meg Cabot, and I didn't love it. That one was called The Boy's Back. It didn't have the same impact for me as her other books, as her young adult books. But because I love Meg Cabot so much, I'll literally read anything that she writes. Just kind of writing that one off. I literally know nothing about this book, so I'm just going to read you a little bit of the blurb. Lizzie Nichols has a problem, and it isn't that she's blowing her college graduation money on a trip to visit her long-distance boyfriend Andy in London. She just can't keep anything to herself, including her indignation at finding out her beloved boyfriend hasn't been completely faithful to her during their separation. She's down the streets with no money and a non-changeable airline ticket home in exactly a month. Fortunately, Lizzie's best friend Cheryl comes to the rescue. She's spending the summer in the south of France catering for weddings in a romantic 16th century chateau, and she's able to sort Lizzie out with a job. One glimpse of the gorgeous Chateau Mirac, not to mention the equally gorgeous son of the owner, and Lizzie is hooked. I guess you could kind of liken it to a holiday novel. I'm excited to give this one a try, and I'm hoping it's better than The Boy's Back. We finally made it to the final book, and that one is The Woman Who Stole My Life by Marianne Keyes. So far I've read one book by Marianne Keyes, and that was The Brightest Star in the Sky, and I really liked that book. I read it a few years ago, and if I remember correctly, I gave it 5 stars. I don't know a whole lot about this book, but presumably the main character's life is stolen by some chick. One day, sitting in traffic, married Dublin mum Stella Sweeney attempts a good deed, collides with a Range Rover, and meets a handsome man who wants her telephone number. She thinks he is arrogant and dismisses the incident, but in this meeting is born the seed of something which will take Stella thousands of miles from her old life, turning an ordinary woman into a superstar, and along the way, wrenching her whole family apart. Was meeting Mr. Range Rover destiny or karma? Should she be grateful or just hopping mad? And can she grab the chance of real, honest-to-goodness happiness now it finally seems within her reach? Jojo Moyes, the author of Me Before You, another book that I really loved, she said that Marianne Keyes is one of our finest writers. I'm looking forward to reading this one. This one is quite hefty. Oh, this one is actually longer than the John Grisham one. This book is 545 pages. Her books are quite hefty. The Bright Star in the Sky took me a little while to read. I think it took me like a month to read that book, but I'm hoping it won't take me nearly as long to read The Woman Who Stole My Life. Woo! We're done. Alright guys, thank you for watching. That is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. So sorry if the angles changed, but I ran out of storage, so I just had to delete some stuff real quick. Yeah, how rude is that? I ran out of storage just at the end of the video. Like, I was nearly done. You couldn't let me have this. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to give it a like and leave me a comment. And if you haven't already subscribed, please click the button that should be about here to do so. And if you feel like checking out some more content of mine, there should be some buttons on the screen with a few suggestions for you to check out. I'm fairly new to the book side of things on YouTube, but I do have a few fashion hauls and makeup videos and reviews for you to check out if any of those things interest you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! A lot of the books here are by authors that I've not read. Some of the books here I've read. Oh my god, I had this organized in my head before, and now I can't apparently speak English anymore. So the next book oh, this one's still got the price tag on the front. Oh, why am I always breathless? You know, sometimes I genuinely forget I have asthma. Like, anyway, I was doing, my god, when I was doing, why do I keep saying when I was doing? I don't know what I'm doing with my hands.